Imagine walking into a theater to watch your own $270 million movie, and you're the only one there. That's exactly what happened to Rachel Zegler. She sat there surrounded by rows of empty seats, her name flickering on the big screen like a cruel joke.
What would you do when you have this narcissistic nightmare trying to ruin a film?
It was March 25th, 2025, and what was supposed to be a triumphant moment turned into a live viewing of her own career hitting a speed bump the size of Everest.
The reason we had Rachel Zegler on the docket is she's an asshole.
Zegler, once hailed as Hollywood's next golden girl, dragged a few close friends along for emotional support. Isla Mason, Jorge Mason, Remy, and Maria Isabel Demison were her crew, armed with Snow White popcorn buckets and a dwindling sense of optimism. But here's where it gets interesting. As the lights dimmed, Isla tried to lighten the mood by screaming Rachel's name when it appeared in the credits. Instead of cheers, her voice echoed awkwardly in the cavernous, empty room. Rachel forced a laugh and clapped for herself, because literally no one else would. The moment was caught on Instagram, instantly going viral for all the wrong reasons. And that's just the beginning.
Because this woman is a pig, and you fired Gina Carano for far less than this nonsense.
They even tried to hop on a viral TikTok trend, asking a theater employee for 2 tickets, please. But when he replied, "For which movie?" and the camera panned to their themed popcorn, it hit harder than any critic's review. The joke wasn't just on Rachel, it was the whole production. Stick around, because the fallout from this night only gets worse.
Have they ever thought about maybe like a little bit of vulnerability study, opposition research, that sort of thing, before you go and hire some Zoomer who's a lunatic?
Yeah, but they're all lunatic. I mean, how many people in Hollywood, maybe not to this extent.
Rachel Zegler didn't just star in a flop, she witnessed it die in real time, and no amount of Disney magic could bring it back. By Thursday night previews, Snow White had scraped together a sad $3.5 million. By the weekend, it limped to just $43 million. For context, The Little Mermaid remake made over twice that. Even Dumbo, yes, Dumbo, had a better debut. But here's where it gets crazier. Snow White wasn't just a flop, it was a luxury disaster. With a production budget north of $250 million, and that's before marketing, the film would need a box office miracle just to break even. But instead of long lines and sold-out shows, theaters posted seating charts that looked like ghost towns. Entire rows remained untouched, like people were actively avoiding the movie like a cursed relic. And then came the memes. Twitter exploded with GoFundMe for Disney jokes. TikTok users stitched Rachel's past interviews, where she confidently said people would line up for her films. Only now, the only line was on her resume, and it was flat. But hold that thought, because this isn't just about numbers. It's about pride, politics, and a storm that was only just beginning to swirl around Zegler. And what resurfaced next made everything worse. Rachel once said people would wait in line to see her movies. But now, the only things stacking up are receipts. Not long after Snow White belly flopped at the box office, the internet pulled out its sharpest weapon, an old clip. In it, Rachel stood tall, voice trembling with emotion, declaring that despite her flaws and imperfections, she hoped fans would line up to see her work, just like they do for the shattered winged victory statue at the Louvre. But listen to this. The pride, only line forming now was a digital one. Fans, critics, and trolls alike queued up to roast her into oblivion. Twitter reposts, reaction videos, and TikToks all spun the same narrative. Rachel's dream had turned into a public nightmare. That poetic speech, it became a meme overnight. The once moving monologue was now a punchline to a $270 million joke. What happened next will shock you. Theaters were empty, ticket sales were humiliating, and the critics didn't hold back. One viral comment summed it up perfectly. "Welcome back to reality, princess." Others weren't so kind. They called her delusional, out of touch, even cursed. But remember that clip, because that moment would set the tone for what Disney executives did next. And the fallout was explosive. Rachel Zegler didn't just anger fans, she rattled the very studio that cast her. And behind the scenes, it was chaos. At first, Disney execs tried to play it cool. Zegler's public jabs at the original Snow White were brushed off as modern takes. But privately, executives were sweating bullets. She had already trashed the original film's love story, calling it weird, and questioned the prince's behavior. But when she took the stage at Disney's prestigious D23 event and ended her sweet thank you speech with a bold political statement, things spiraled fast. And here's the twist. That one sentence turned a $270 million fairy tale into a PR nightmare. The studio launched into full-blown damage control. Top brass scrambled for a plan, and insiders said it best. Zegler had ignited a political firestorm that no one was prepared for. One exec was even quoted saying, "Rachel Zegler can fuggy right off," and And just when it couldn't get more volatile, someone close to the film publicly threw her under the bus. Don't scroll yet, because the next betrayal came from inside the castle, just when Rachel Zegler thought the storm couldn't get worse. The producer's own son came for her throat. Jonah Platt, son of Snow White's producer Mark Platt, didn't just throw shade, he dropped a social media bomb. In a now-deleted Instagram comment, Jonah let it rip. He claimed his own father had to hop on a plane just to confront Zegler, begging her to stop turning the film's promo tour into a political battleground. Jonah called it what it was: reckless, irresponsible, and career-tanking behavior. But listen to this, he didn't stop there. Jonah flat out said her political outbursts were one of the reasons the movie failed, and the kicker, he called it adult responsibility and slammed her for refusing to take any. Even Variety people and The Hollywood Reporter picked up the story. Suddenly, this wasn't just a PR problem, it was a full-on Hollywood implosion, and here's why that matters. Even with personal intervention from one of Disney's biggest producers, Rachel refused to delete her post for a long time. It stayed up, loud and defiant, as the box office crumbled. This wasn't just bad press, it was a warning shot to any studio thinking of hiring her next. But the drama didn't end there, because things between Rachel and her co-star were unraveling fast. They played fairy tale rivals on screen, but behind the scenes, Rachel Zegler and Gal Gadot were headed for a real-life showdown. At first, it looked like Disney had a dream duo, Zegler as Snow White, Gadot as the evil queen. But something shifted. While insiders said they smiled for cameras during filming, the energy between them turned cold as the release date loomed. The tipping point? The 2025 Oscars. The two presented together, but the chemistry was off. The internet noticed. And then came the Instagram post that set off alarms. Hold that thought, because it connects to something even messier. Rachel posted a heartfelt tribute to the cast and crew, calling Snow White a life-changing experience. She praised the team, the summers in London, the magic of it all, but left out one glaring name: Gal Gadot. No mention, no photo, nothing. Fans immediately called it out. Some said it had to be a mistake, others knew better, and it gets worse. Shortly after, users uncovered a subtle but shady comment Zegler had made earlier, referring to Gadot as a professional pageant queen. Not exactly a compliment. Disney insiders confirmed tensions were high, but this wasn't just about personality clashes, because politically, they were on completely opposite sides, and that made things dangerous. The next segment reveals how Rachel's posts triggered real-world threats. A few Instagram posts. That's all it took for Rachel Zegler to endanger her co-star's safety and ignite a global firestorm. As tensions simmered between Zegler and Gadot, things took a darker turn. Rachel publicly posted in support of Palestine, without acknowledging the complexity of the situation. The problem? Gal Gadot is from Israel and served in the Israeli army. The fallout was instant. Gadot became a lightning rod online, drawing massive backlash and even threats to her personal safety. But here's the twist. Disney had to step in, not to protect the film's reputation, but to protect Gadot's life. The studio reportedly paid for extra security to shield her and her 4 children from potential harm. One insider put it bluntly: Rachel didn't understand the repercussions of her actions. Not for the film, not for Gal, not for anyone. And just when you thought things couldn't spiral further, Disney executives were done playing nice. They flew producer Mark Platt out twice to confront Zegler directly. They begged her to pull back on social media, to stop fanning flames, to think about the bigger picture. Eventually, she agreed to work with a social media expert, but the damage was done, and the post that triggered Disney's full-blown meltdown, that one's up next, and it lit everything on fire. One sentence. That's all it took for Rachel Zegler to throw gasoline on the fire and nearly set Disney ablaze. After months of tension, PR disasters, and behind-the-scenes begging, Rachel dropped the post that broke the studio's patience. Just after the US presidential election, she took to Instagram and wrote, "May Trump's supporters never know peace." That one line detonated like a bomb inside the mouse house. Executives were blindsided. This wasn't just a bold political stance. It was alienating half of the film's potential audience. And the reason this matters? The movie was already bleeding money, crippled by controversies and bad buzz. But this post turned a financial disaster into a cultural lightning rod. Internal sources say Disney went into instant meltdown mode. Panic calls, emergency meetings, damage control became their full-time job, and still, Zegler didn't delete the post right away. So what did Disney do? They went nuclear. Mark Platt flew out again, this time with a final plea. Rachel agreed reluctantly to let a social media expert screen every post leading up to the release. But the timing was too late. The backlash was already baked in, and the audience wasn't buying forgiveness or tickets, but hold tight, because Rachel's final move before opening night raised even more eyebrows. Just hours before Snow White limped into theaters, Rachel Zegler made one final post and left out the one person no one expected her to. On March 20th, 2025, the night before the film's official release, Rachel shared a glowing tribute on Instagram. She poured her heart out, calling the Snow White experience life-changing. She thanked the crew, the team, name, The Magical Summers in London. It read like a love letter to everyone involved, except one name was missing, Gal Gadot. No tag, no photo, not even a single word of acknowledgement. And the internet noticed fast. Fans and critics alike flooded the comments. Was it an innocent oversight or another calculated snub? Considering the Oscar night awkwardness, the pageant queen comment, and the behind-the-scenes political tension, people weren't buying the innocent act. And it gets crazier. Even Disney insiders chimed in anonymously, admitting it felt intentional and weird. The omission seemed to confirm everything people suspected about the fractured relationship between Rachel and Gal. And with the film already crumbling, this public fracture became yet another headline feeding the controversy machine. But before we wrap this up, there's one last bombshell that turned this fairy tale into a cautionary tale. Disney didn't just remake Snow White, they remade a disaster. And when the dust finally settled, the fairy tale was dead. In the weeks before release, Disney quietly started pulling back. There was no glitzy Hollywood premiere, no London red carpet. Instead, they threw a muted daytime pre-party in LA and tucked the European screening away in a remote castle in northern Spain. No fanfare, no spotlight. It was like they were hiding their own movie. But here's the twist. This wasn't just a studio retreat, it felt like a silent admission. We messed up. From the moment Rachel Zegler was cast, the project had been haunted. Her controversial takes, the political firestorms, the snubs, the backlash, it all created a toxic cloud. The film couldn't escape. Even Peter Dinklage joined the storm, criticizing Disney's approach to the Seven Dwarfs. The studio's solution? Replace them with awkward CGI characters that fans hated even more. And now we know why. With a $270 million price tag and barely any return, Snow White wasn't just a box office bomb. It became a cultural cautionary tale. The story of how a remake lost its magic, its audience, and its voice, all before it even had a chance. So the question now is simple. Did Disney just make a bad movie, or did they ignore every warning sign along the way? Because if there's one lesson here, it's that not all fairy tales end with a happily ever after.